Okay, here we have a video on simplifying radicals. Well, before we simplify radicals, let's get some vocab out of the way. Okay, let's look at the parts of a radical. So parts of a radical, what do we have here? You can see here, this is talking about taking the cube root of 27. And the cube root is identified by this number 3 here, and that's what they refer to as the index. This is the 27 is the number under the radical sign, so that's referred to as the radicand, and obviously this is the radical symbol, kind of looks like the check mark, as I've heard some of you refer to it as, and that's the parts of a radical. So let's get this out of here. And how do I simplify a radical? Well, I know some of you today thought it really wasn't simplifying it. If anything, it was making it more complicated. But let's look at radical 16, or taking the square root of 16. I know a lot of you are going to jump on this one real quick and say, well, I know that. That's easy. That's just 4. And that's good, okay, because you know 4 times 4 is 16. That's referred to as a perfect square. But what if I wanted to do radical 32? Okay, I know 32 is not a perfect square. Let me rewrite that. Sorry. Radical 32. I know it's not a perfect square. So how can I simplify this? And one way to simplify it is to think of the largest perfect square that goes into 32. That's a factor of 32. I know one perfect square that goes into 32 is 16. So I'm going to rewrite this as radical 16 times radical 2. And why did I do that? Well, I know 16 times 2 is 32. So radical 16 times radical 2 is radical 32. So I haven't changed it. But I did rewrite it because we know, well, hey, I can simplify radical 16. We just did it here. Radical 16 is just 4. So I can rewrite this as 4 radical 2, and that is equal to radical 32, but it's simplified. Okay, let's try another one. How about, let's try radical 80. Okay, I know it's going to be really close to 9 if I enter that into my calculator, but that would give me an approximate answer because it's irrational. And a calculator is not going to be able to tell us an exact answer. So let's simplify this, and let's look at some perfect squares that go into 80. So I know one perfect square. I know 4 is going to go into 80. So let's rewrite this as, say, radical 4 times radical 20. Okay. Well, I can simplify radical 4. I know that is radical 2, not radical 2, that's just going to be just 2. Because the square root of 4 is 2, and that's going to be 2 times radical 20. But I'm not done, am I? Because if I look at radical 20, I know I can simplify that as well. Radical 20, well, there's another 4 in there, isn't there? I have a radical 4 times radical 5. Okay? I still have my 2 that I reduced here out here. So I know I can rewrite that as 2 times, and again, radical 4 can be reduced to radical 2, or excuse me, just 2 again, and radical 5. Well, 2 times 2, we know that's 4, and that's going to be 4 radical 5. I can't reduce radical 5 any further. So my answer is 4 radical 5. And if I wanted to check that on a calculator, I could. I would see that's equivalent to radical 80. Let's look at another example. How about an example where we have a coefficient in front of my radical? So what I mean by that is if I had, say, 2 radical 40. Okay? So really what that's just saying 2 times radical 40. And let's try to break down radical 40 so we can simplify it. So I know radical 40, I know, again, let's take out a radical 4. So that's 2 times radical 4 times radical 10. Again, we can reduce radical 4 to just 2 times 2 times radical 10, and that's going to reduce to 4 radical 10. Well, I hope this video helped, and if you have questions, I'll see you in class tomorrow. Good night.